I was almost abducted. 2 years ago, I was on cloud 9. I just started the relationship I'm still very happily in right now. I'd just been made the manager of a restaurant, which enabled me the financial freedom to quit my crappy second job. And I looked and I felt great, having made some positive lifestyle changes. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I just moved into a new apartment, and I had literally over 50 pounds of clothes that I didn't want anymore, so I decided to donate some to Goodwill. I loaded up 2 IKEA bags full and walked down South Broadway in a sundress because the summer heat's been intense. I was on the busiest street in the middle of the day, just before summer. Needless to say, I felt very safe. I had just turned down Broadway towards Goodwill, both bags heavy on either shoulder, weighing at least 20 pounds, and they were bulging out, when I felt somebody come up behind me and bear hug me without a word. Now, my boyfriend and many friends work on this very street, so in this moment I was just waiting to hear my name called out to, "Hey, gotcha," anything indicating that it was someone I knew just being silly. They said nothing, and the way they grabbed me was awkward and firm, over my arms and bags, so they were bear hugging me with my arms and bags pinned to my sides. I tried to lift my arms to break free, but I couldn't. This is when I simultaneously noticed they had gloves on in the summer heat. We were all alone on the street. He had lifted me and the bags ever so slightly enough to kind of start dragging me backwards, while still bearing down, glove fists locked onto my chest and over my arms. I started to feel his sweat and hear his breath, as it was almost felt like my brain was finally waking up and realizing this was not okay and that I was in trouble. I know how this sounds and I've heard it all. Why didn't you scream? I would have, blah blah blah. But the description I've just given you happened in less than a few minutes. My brain was trying its hardest to rationalize what was happening. He had dragged me about 4 feet and I was screaming. Then I noticed a guy in a suit running out from a real estate office about 100 yards away. He was yelling, "Hey, are you okay? Let go of her." The man promptly let go of me, though he wasn't going to leave without a prize, so he took a second to run his disgusting hands under my skirt and over my arse and hips. Then he got into a car about 20 feet away from the scene. The passenger door and the trunk were already open, ready to shove me in and get him inside. And there was a driver. No plates. Tyres screeched as they ran a red light to get away. I have no details except car make and model. I didn't see his race, his age, build. Almost no information was available for me to note. He and the driver wore hoodies and sunglasses and gloves. The man who saved me waited until the police came. They drove me home to make sure I wasn't followed, and my boyfriend met me there. I cried so much. And I've learnt, never assume you're safe. I was on the busiest street in the middle of the day, not a bad area, surrounded by people 1 minute and alone with an attacker the next. 2 minutes more and I don't even want to think what could have happened. I read a lot of Reddit scary stories and subscribe to many YouTube channels, crime channels that highlight murders and disappearances, and I know just how it could have turned out. And by the way, I later looked online, and although the police told me there hadn't been any similar attacks, there were numerous reports of a man bear-hugging women from behind and trying to drag them away. One woman was dragged into an apartment lobby and raped. 2 men were parked on a busy street, disguised in hoodies and sunglasses, and tried to drag me into an unmarked vehicle. I escaped because a stranger ran out and disrupted the attack. Predators are opportunistic. They can strike at any time. Tell your sister, tell your girlfriend, tell your mother, tell anyone in your life. Be safe. Be alert.
This happened about 4 years ago. I was working at a nursing home. There was a little old lady that was one of my favourites, so I would check up on her often. I'll call her Rose. She had a best friend that she had known for decades. I'll call her Stella. She moved there by chance, as did Rose. I would often help Rose to the dining area and get her sat next to Stella. Every day when Rose would sit down, Stella would say the same thing. "Why, hello there. I haven't seen you in a while." Rose would then turn to me and say with a smile, "We have been good friends since our kids were little." Rose would roll her eyes and say to me in a whisper, "Do we have to go over this every day?" The point is, I knew Rose had all her wits about her, so the story I am telling isn't about the effects of dementia or Alzheimer's. Anyway, I worked the evening shift often, so I would help Rose get ready for bed. She had been moved to a new room, and after a couple of weeks, weird things started to happen. She would yell for me, and I would run in the room, thinking she had fallen, because her balance wasn't the good at the best of times. I would come in, and she would just be staring into the corner, saying there was a man in her room. I would ask her where, and she would point, saying he was there, staring at her. I would walk to the spot she said he was, and try to reassure her no one was there, but she would still insist on him being there. This happened more often on a nightly basis, and soon she would even say there were children in the room. After a couple of weeks, she started saying her husband had just been there and wanted to know where he went. Of course, he hadn't been around since he passed away more than a decade ago. I spoke with a couple of the other carers that worked there because I was starting to get very creeped out, and they said they thought the room was cursed because the same thing happened to the last guy that had the room. He went into the room with a sound mind, and then within weeks started seeing things. He died soon after. I asked if there was any way we could move her because the other rooms seemed fine. Sadly, after being in that room for a couple of months and telling me of these visits by various people every night, Rose passed away. I was very upset because I couldn't help wonder, if we had intervened, would she still be alive? My story starts in Orlando, Florida. Disney World to be exact. We all know about the monorails that wind between the huge amusement parks and Disney World. The white subway-like tubes that run on tracks above the traffic-filled streets. Usually there are 4 monorails, all different colours: green, orange, yellow and red. But this story is about a 5th monorail, a monorail with a gold line. My friend and I, Brian, let's call him Brian, were enjoying the parks, walking around in a dazed splendour, captivated by the parks and overtaken by the curiosity of a child. We were told the park was closing, so we left the park and ventured off to the monorail station. We stepped aboard the monorail, Brian pointing out that this one is newer because of the gold stripe and upholstered seats. I told him he was just sleep deprived and not to worry about it. Boy, was I wrong. We left the station and for what felt like hours travelled over the tracks. I again put it down to sleep deprivation. That's when Brian started to notice we were the only ones on the monorail and that we appeared to be in some kind of tunnel. When we arrived at the first stop, 2 men in suits came in and forcefully pulled us out of the car. The last thing I remember is them talking about the prisons and the other man saying, "They haven't found anything yet, there's no need," before I was out cold. I woke up in my hotel room. Brian asleep in the bed next to mine, a strange mark on my left hand. There was a note on the table. It read, "Sorry for the inconvenience. We understand you were put on a monorail last night that was not currently running. We have given you 2 annual passes. If you tell anyone what you saw, it won't be the last time you hear from us. Sincerely, the Disney cast members." I won't be using those damn passes, and I'm most likely putting myself at risk for telling you guys this stuff. I just want you to know Disney isn't as innocent as you think. I don't have any explanation for you guys, just a warning. Please, please don't get on the gold stripe monorail. I don't want them following you too. Someone just knocked at my door. I'm going to post this before I answer it. If you don't hear from me again, please don't get on the gold stripe monorail. I'm begging you. It was 2012. My sister and her husband were renting a new house in a really nice neighbourhood, and the house looked almost brand new. During their first week of living there after settling in, my sister asked me to stay the night. I went to bed in the guest bedroom and I swore that night that I heard footsteps going up and down the stairs. The same night I woke up sweating bullets. I went to check the thermostat to see if it needed changing and it read 65 degrees, but the room felt literally like a sauna. As I got back into bed, I felt a freezing cold gust of wind blowing on me. Then it was gone. I was spooked but fell asleep. I slept over about 2 or 3 nights later in a different guest room. They had no kids, so they had extra rooms. I kept being woken up by what sounded like a ping pong table and the sound of a ping pong ball echoing and tapping back and forth. I fell asleep and woke up to a hot room again. I figured that part of the house had shitty heating and cooling, so I took my blanket to the living room. I turned on the TV and settled into the very comfortable couch. I turned off the TV as I was just on the brink of sleep, when suddenly it felt like someone had sat down on the end of the couch. Whoever it was sat there for only a couple of seconds. I turned the TV back on and the volume was on full for a few seconds, then went static, making white noise. At this point, I bolted upstairs to my sister's room and asked to sleep with her and her husband. They said yes, and I felt like a child. The next day I told my sister everything and she surprisingly didn't scoff at me or deny it as she normally would, as neither of us had ever believed in ghosts. She revealed to me that she had been having experiences of her own, like hearing a grandfather clock go off in the night when there was no clocks in the house like that, and be adamant she had people running through the hall, up and down, back and forth. She also experienced somebody sitting down at the foot of her bed. My brother-in-law vehemently denied our claims, being that he was raised in a southern house and just doesn't believe in this kind of thing. Until a few weeks later, he was digging through their walk-in closet trying to install shelving and went to open up the tiny door in the crawl space. He planned to make it a storage area, but he got totally spooked when in the middle of the crawl space he found a book of matches, where it seemed all the matches had been lit and blown out but never taken out of the book. He said he had been finding the same matchbook all over the house. The garage, the back patio, and once in a cabinet in the kitchen. He was creeped, and so were we. My sister contacted her realtor and asked if she could speak with the previous owner. Her realtor explained that they were dead. The previous tenant had killed his wife, daughter, and even the dog, all in that house. My sister had never known this and was beyond pissed at the realtor for never mentioning it. They moved out within the next few weeks and now have an awesome home and kids. We still get pretty creeped out when talking about the house on Merino Way. What I'm about to tell you happened over 11 years ago when I was 6. We just moved into my aunt's old house after she had passed away. It was a nice house and we were living there for about 3 months before this happened. It was a Friday and my brothers decided to sleep over at a friend's house, leaving just my parents and I, which was fine with me. I fell asleep on the couch and woke up around 2 a.m. because of a dry throat, so I get up and go into the kitchen to get a drink. I finish my drink and go back to the couch to lie down. Glancing up at the stairs, I see my brother standing at the top looking down at me. I was so scared and confused I closed my eyes and screamed as loud as I could. Even though it looked like my brother, it wasn't my brother, and I knew that. My parents came running down the stairs and I told them everything that had just happened. They looked around the house to see if my brothers were there playing a prank on me, and even called the parents of the friend he was staying with. They said that both of my brothers were there. The next morning my brothers returned home and I asked them if they came home last night. The friend's house wasn't that far, so they could have easily walked back. They both told me no. A month passed and I slowly started to forget about what had happened until it happened again. It was on a Wednesday night and I was in my bedroom. My bed is right next to a big window and I was laying down, facing it. I turned over to get more comfortable and saw someone standing at my bedroom door. I honestly felt like I could wet the bed as I was so scared. I couldn't move. This person, or whatever it was just looking at me. It was terrifying because it was so dark and all I could see was a figure of a man and his white eyes, no other colour, just white. I moved my leg a little and I must have knocked something over because it was gone so fast I didn't even see it move. I screamed for my dad and told him someone was watching me. I cried all night until I fell asleep in my parents' bed. Since that happened, I've been hearing people walking around at night, someone knocking at the door but no one being there and things moving or being pushed over. The worst thing is, when I'm in the bathroom taking a bath, the lights would turn on and off. I know it couldn't have been my brother's because the light switch was in the bathroom and the door would always be closed. These things were happening for about 5 months. Unfortunately, we were unable to move due to not having enough money. Another 6 months go by and the same things were going on until my 7th birthday, when we were finally able to move. It was the best birthday present ever. I was so happy to get out of that house. Nothing like that happened in my new home. I haven't been back to that house, and I don't plan on it. Yesterday, something creepy happened. Almost everyone at my school thinks the school is haunted or possessed or something. My friends and I were in the music classroom office. It was small and cramped, but all 4 of us could just about fit. I thought it would be a great idea to scare my friends, so I turned the lights off and asked them if they wanted to look into the vents with me. All of them said yes, but this one girl, she doesn't believe in anything like that. I flashed my light through the grid of the vent. It was dark and you could hear faint echoes of the voices around school, but we saw nothing. Time passed and we were all joking around, so I decided to look in the vent again, but from a different angle this time. It was a total mistake. I stood there frozen, staring up into the vent, dark cold eyes staring back at me. I was too scared to do anything. One of my friends came over and looked. She saw it too, and the other girls knew something wasn't right by the look on our faces. We both ran out of there screaming and my other 2 friends followed, not understanding what had just happened. I have school tomorrow, but I'm afraid of what is living in the vents. Today was the same as yesterday. My friends thought that it would be a great idea to look in it again. We didn't see anything this time. I went to leave to go outside, but my friends stopped me and I ended up staying, even though I knew it was going to end up bad. All day I had this feeling like something bad was going to happen, and so did everyone else involved. I asked all of them, and they said that they felt it too. I should have known and done the right thing. So we turned the lights off again, and my friends thought it would be fun to play the creepy version of Ring Around the Rosie. They were right, it was creepy. My friend Sai thought it would be cool to go to the corner of the room and face the wall, just standing there still and quiet. It was creepy. She then suddenly turned around to face us and screamed. She made us all jump and we all screamed too because that was just weird. Sai then said that she felt breathing on her neck and fell to the ground. She was asking Lizzie to turn off the music. Sai was about to start crying. Is she still joking? Lizzie pleaded that this wasn't fun anymore. The corner Sai was in was right under the vent. Sai quickly sat down and pushed towards the corner. It was an accident. I suddenly felt something, so I ran to the other corner of the wall. Lizzie and my other friend Anna looked worried and scared. Sai still looked like she was about to cry. The bell rang and startled us, so we left to get to our other classes quickly. I'm pretty sure Lizzie is going to make us do it again tomorrow. Thinking back and talking to Sai, I remember that this thing had deep black eyes and his whole body was black. When I flashed my light at him, you could see the shine of black and white. He was grinning at me.